All right, corrections video for page 12 from the math pack that you have. This was math you were supposed to do last week on Wednesday. So, right, let's start with number 1 on page 12. Write 3 ratios equal to the ratio of circles to squares. So you're going to need to work with equivalent ratios. You're going to need to find the ratio of circles to squares first, and then work towards making 3 more equivalent ratios out of your own head. So, circles, there's 2. Squares, there's 4. So, what you're going to do is we've done this a bunch of times before, you're going to pick a number, any number, and whatever you do to this one, you do the same thing to that one. So pick a number and then manipulate that number with your ratio. So I'm going to pick 5. So now I've got 10 to 20. That's 1 equivalent ratio, but the paper asks me to do 3, so I've got to do 2 more. So I'll do 2 times 7 and 4 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 4 times 7 is 28. So there's 2 equivalent ratios. I need 1 more for my total of 3. So this time I'm going to pick 9. So 2 times 9 and then 4 times 9. 2 times 9 is 18. And then 4 times 9 is 36. So there are all of my equivalent ratios for my circles and squares. This is how many circles and squares there actually are, and these are the ones that are equivalent to that ratio because I picked a random number and multiplied the ratio by that number to get my equivalent ratios. All right, let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, it's asking you, are they equivalent or not? So you need to use your equal sign. 2 to 3 equals 4 to 9. So how do I turn 2 into 4? How does 4 turn into 2? You can go times or divide. Done this before. Or you use times. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is not 9. So this is not equal. Let's try number 10. Number 10 is written as a fraction. We've got 48 over 16 equals 3 over 1. So 16 divided by 16 is going to get me 1 for sure. So let's see, can I do 48 divided by 16? If you don't want to do an outside calculation, if you don't know off the top of your head, don't just guess. Please don't guess. Use an outside calculation. 48 divided by 16 equals 3, which is perfect. So this one is equal. 16 divided by 16 is 1. 48 divided by 16 is 3. It's equal. You just leave the equal sign alone. Let's take a look at number 11. So on number 11, you've got x's and y's again, w's, t's, whatever. And remember, whenever you see a letter in your math, it just means you don't know what the number is. So it's like an empty box. And so don't get freaked out when you see the letters. It just means it's a number, but we don't know what that number is, and you have to figure it out. So number 11, I've got x over 5, which equals 4 over 20. Now, remember, the x is really just an empty box that you need to fill with the right number. So, how do you turn 5 into 20? What's the relationship there? 5 times 4 is 20, or 20 divided by 4 is 5. So something times 4 will be 4. 4 divided by 4 will be my something. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. So your x is 1. Let's try another one of those. Let's work on number 14. So number 14, I have a w over 25, and it equals 1 over 5. So again, you're going to get rid of your w, because it's an empty box. You need to fill the box. So you're going to have to figure out the relationship between 25 and 5. How do I turn 25 into 5? How do I turn 5 into 25? What is the relationship between the two? So remember, when you're doing bigger numbers to smaller numbers, you're going to have to divide. Turning smaller numbers into bigger numbers, you're going to have to times. So 25 divided by 5 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. These numbers should be the same. That means if I times my 1 by 5, I will get my top number. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. All right, take a look at number 19. Number 19, you're doing the same thing. Find the unknown value in each proportion. So instead of written as a fraction, it's just written as a ratio, but it works exactly the same way. So x to 3 equals 12 to 18. So again, what's the relationship between x and 12? We don't know, because we don't know what x is. X is the empty box. What's the relationship between 3 and 18? That we can figure out. When you're going from smaller to bigger, you're going to times. When you're going from bigger to smaller, you're going to divide. So 3 times 6 is 18, which means 18 divided by 6 is 3. So 12 also divided by 6. You have to use the same number on all of this to make sure it's equal. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So instead of my x, I'm going to write 2. And 2 divided by, 2 times 6. That's not what I want there. There we go. 2 times 6 is 12. So all of this is equal, it's equivalent, because see how they're all 6s? That's because I'm using the same number to manipulate my ratios. And so I found my missing number, the x is 2. Let's try another one. Try 22. So we've got 1 to 6 equals r to 24. Remember, r is an empty box. Your job is to figure out what goes in that box. What does r equal? So, what's the relationship between 6 and 24? 6 times something is 24. 24 divided by something is 6. So you know 6 times 4 is 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. That means if I'm multiplying this by 4, I have to multiply this by 4 to get r. So r, 1 times 4 is 4. And then just double check. If I divide this by 4, I have to divide this by 4 to get 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So the 4's are there, my equal sign is correct, and r equals 4. The empty box has been replaced